Amigos, welcome to the School of Motion Graphics. My name is CM de la Vega. We have another exciting tutorial today. One of the cool things about living in Hollywood is I get to see posters like this. And today's tutorial is on how to do a movie motion poster. We'll be doing the poster right behind me, Wonder Woman. So let's jump right in. Amigos, this is an After Effects tutorial, but you will have to spend some time in Photoshop. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna briefly show you some of the techniques that I use to create this Wonder Woman motion poster. But the most important thing that you need to know is that you have to cut out your main talent from the poster and you need a clean plate of the background. So for this example, using the clone tool, using other tools in Photoshop like the smudge tool, I was able to create a clean plate of the background in the foreground. Now for her logo, using the pen tool, I was able to cut it out and create her logo. And for these text, I could not find the font, so what I decided to do is using the pen tool. You can see I have my path here. I just used the pen tool, and we're gonna use this path to cut out the text, and we're gonna make it 3D inside of After Effects. And finally, for Wonder Woman herself, you can see I have the different path here. Let me show you my layers. This is the original image, and let me go one by one. So let's go to Wonder Woman. You can see Wonder Woman right now. Let me deselect this, go back to layer. She doesn't have an arm, and I have her arm in a separate layer. And the idea is, if we hit Control T for transform, the idea is in After Effects, we're gonna do a little bit of animation and have her basically put the sword down like this. So that's the key, and that's what you can do sometimes to give it just a little bit of movement for your characters in your motion posters. Now, her hair, these little strands of hair, I cut them out individually, and we're gonna go one by one. And what I'm gonna do is give it the effect in After Effects like it's blowing in the wind. So let's go and let me show you one by one. So each little hair, I cut them out. And these are the different strands of hair that we're gonna animate individually inside of After Effects. So this is what you need to do. In this case, you don't have to do it for your actors. This one looked pretty cool because you have her hair blowing in the wind. So let's just continue this theme. So you have to be creative as a motion graphic artist. You have to really just put on the thinking cap and think, what cool effects can I do? What is the picture telling me to do? So just look at it, be creative, have fun, and go for it. So let's go to After Effects. Okay, amigos, we're inside of After Effects. Let's get started by importing the Photoshop file of Wonder Woman. Hit Control I, and let's select our Photoshop file, hit import, and you get this box. Now select the last option, and let's select this option, merge layer styles into footage. Now After Effects creates a composition, and double click to open, and it creates a composition with all the layers that you have inside of Photoshop. So it's important to name each of your layers in Photoshop because they appear here in After Effects. Now this original image we can delete. Now hit Control K to open the composition settings and just make sure that you're using the right frame rate that you want to use. In this example, we want to use 23.976. And then let's hit OK. Now remember, amigos, to animate Wonder Woman, I created different layers, and we're going to use each of these layers, and we're going to use different techniques. Now for the hair, if I solo this hair, I have different layers for the hair, for the strands of hair, and we want to create this, we want to make it seem like it's blowing in the wind. And to make it look like it's blowing in the wind, we're going to use the puppet tool. So let's go to the first hair, and let's click on the puppet tool. And let's create 3 pins, 1, 2, and 3. Now, when you do this, just make sure that your playhead is at the very beginning. If you don't, you can delete and start again. But make sure your playhead is at the very beginning, and hit U on the keyboard. And you can see that it created some keyframes. We got puppet pin 1 this is puppet pin number 1. Puppet pin number 2 is this one, and pin number 3 is this one. And if we move forward in time and remove these pins and we hit playback, it creates an animation for us. Now this is really cool. We can add a whole bunch of keyframes and make it seem like it's blowing in the wind. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna write a simple expression to do it automatically for us. So let's take these keyframes and let's just hit delete. And what we're gonna do is go to pin number 3, go to the position, and on the stopwatch, holding onto the Alt key on your keyboard. Let's Alt click on the stopwatch, and it brings up the expression box, which we can write in a simple expression. So let's type in wiggle, and wiggle takes two parameters. The first parameter is how many times you want it to move per second. For example, we can say we want it to move four times per second. And the second parameter is the distance that you want it to move in pixels. For example, we can say let's move it 4 times a second at a distance of 10 pixels. So you just type in exactly what you see here. And once you're done, click outside this box. You can click up here. And if we hit play, you can see that it's just automatically just moving this pin. And it's perfect. We can click back in again, hit Control C. Let's go to puppet pin number 2. Once again, Alt click on the stopwatch, and this time we can hit Control V to paste in this expression, and we can modify it. Go to 3, for example, 3,6. Click outside the box, and perfect. We have something that looks like a strand of hair moving, blowing in the wind. Now we're going to repeat this process for all of her hair. And to just, not to make this tutorial too long, I'm going to skip this process for all of her hair. But you can, amigos, you can just copy and paste this. Remember, you would have to create the, for example, for hair number 2, go to the beginning, go to the puppet tool, 1, 2, and 3. And then hit U on the keyboard. And I'll click on the stopwatch, hit Control V, and then once again on the second pin, hit on the stopwatch, Alt Control on the stop. Oh, I'm sorry, Alt and click on the stopwatch, hit Control V, and you can modify these numbers. Now, amigos, these numbers you can change them. You don't have to have it exactly the numbers that I have it. You can just experiment and see what, putting in different numbers, what type of results they give. So let's fast forward. And let's go to the arm. Now, as you recall, I had the arm on its own layer. Let me zoom out so you can see. And I have Wonder Woman without an arm here, but I have her arm in a separate layer. If you hit Y on the keyboard, it activates the anchor point. And we're going to move the anchor point right by her elbow, right here. And if we hit W, we get the rotation tool, and you can see that we're rotating her arm. And we're gonna put some keyframes. So let's go to 1 second. Let's go to 1 second. Hit R for rotation. Let's put a keyframe, and let's go to 112, for example. Let's put in another keyframe. And at the first keyframe, let's move this up. Let's select the last keyframe, and let's put Easy Ease in. There you go. So you can create a little animation with her arm. Now let's make her breathe. In order to make her breathe, we're going to create a new null object, and let's call it breathe. And to make her breathe, we need to move this null object all the way to the bottom. Select all your layers. We don't need the last one. The last one is just a gray background, just so it'll help us see. So let's select all the layers, and let's parent it to our breathe null object. And we're gonna use the scale property to animate the breathing. Let's unlink the chain, and let's put in a keyframe. Let's go to 112, and we can do 102. Let's go to 3 seconds, and let's go to 100. Select your keyframes, right click, go to keyframe assistant and Easy Ease, which is F9. So if we see, let's go back, very subtle, we can see that she's breathing. Now it stops. That's because we need to put more keyframes. Now we can add more keyframes, we can copy and paste this, but there's another expression that is really simple that will automatically loop this animation for us. So remember, to write an expression, holding down to the Alt key on your keyboard, let's Alt click on the stopwatch, and it brings the expression box. And this one, let's type in loop out cycle, exactly how you see it here. Now if we hit play, You see, she's still breathing and the animation is looping. Perfect. Now for the rest of this tutorial, amigos, I'll be using the one that I created. This is the one I created. It's pretty much the same thing that I did for you guys. The only thing is I have her hair, all her strands of hair moving. So we'll be using this one. And we can close this one. Let's create a new composition. Remember, it was 23.976. We're going to make it 1920 by 1080. 10 seconds long is good. Let's bring in our Wonder Woman composition. Let's bring in our Wonder Woman composition. And let's bring in the background. This is a clean background that we cloned out in Photoshop. And let's bring it down. And we can scale this up. Hit S for scale. And let's scale it up a little bit. Now, the sky, amigos, I will replace the sky with some moving clouds. It'll be a video footage of moving clouds. So I just want the foreground, the sand. So we're going to cut it at the horizon. So go to Effect, go to Transition, go to Linear Wipe, and for the angle, type in 180. Let's go fit up to 100 so you can see. And let's move the completion. And let's feather it a value of 15 pixels. Perfect. Now let's make these 3D layers by activating the 3D switch. And we go to the top view. We can see that Wonder Woman, let's make her this color. And the Wonder Woman and the background are on top of each other. So let's move this back in Z space. We can also hit P for position and move it back about 100 pixels. Let's go back to our active camera. Let's bring in our sky footage. And we have, let's go to our stock. I have this great footage. Go back. I have this footage of some time lapse of skies, sunset, which is really nice. So let's bring that in. And once again, we need to make it a 3D layer. Let's activate the 3D switch and go back to the top view. Let's zoom out and let's move it back in Z space. Hit P for position and let's move it about 500 pixels. Go back to our active camera. Now let's move it up, and as you can see, we don't want to show the ocean. So what we can do is we can move it just at the horizon point. Perfect. And then we can scale this. We can scale this up too. We can scale up this one as well. Perfect. Now we can add more elements. We have this atmosphere element from Video Copilot. So let's add this in. Let's put it in, make it a 3D layer. Let's solo it for now. I want to show you a couple things. One, it's a little bit smaller, but it's not a problem. We can scale it up. But we have a problem that it cuts at the edges. And in order to hide that it's cutting off right here, what I like to do is I like to create an elliptical mask. So click on the elliptical mask, double click, it'll create a mask. But the thing is, we need to feather it. You see it's hard edge right now. We need to feather it. So hit MM, and it brings up the mask properties. And for the feather, let's type in 100 for 100 pixels. And maybe we can bring in a little bit the expansion, like maybe minus 25 pixels. So this is what we get. We have this smoke, but then we have it kind of further off at the edges, which is pretty cool. So let's unsolo. Let's go to the top view. Let's bring it in front. Let's bring it in front of Wonder Woman. We can bring it perfect, minus 100 pixels. Now it looks cool, but it's not matching the scene. So what we need to do is go to Effect, Generate, Fill. Let's hide it for now. Let's hide this. And we can select, maybe we can select this color, this orange. Perfect. It's looking pretty good. Now let's create her shadow. To create her shadow, you can use Video Copilot. They have a free plugin called VC Reflect, which is pretty cool, and it creates a shadow for you. You can download it, you can install it. It's free. It's Video Copilot. You can download it there. And If you don't want to use the free plugin, you can always do it manually. You can make a copy, Control D to make a copy. And let's call this shadow. Let's call this Wonder Woman. Let's call this smoke for now, for lack of a better word. And for this one is the sand. And this one is clouds. Okay, so for the shadow, hit Y for the anchor point. Let's move the anchor point all the way to the bottom of her feet. And let's hit R for rotation. And simply let's just rotate it all the way to the bottom, 180. We can give it a Gaussian blur. Go to blur. Let's blur it a little bit. And we can go to effect, transition, linear wipe. Once again, 180 for the wipe angle. Let's bring the completion up. And let's do a heavy feather, about 200 pixels. And we can bring down the opacity if you want. There you go. You can do this. It's another technique that you can use. Perfect. Now let's add a camera. Go to Layer, New Camera. Let's add a new null object, and we'll call this Rotate Camera. Let me make this yellow. And let's make this Rotate Camera null object a 3D layer, and let's parent our camera to the Rotate Camera. So if we go to the top view, you can see I rotated right on top of Wonder Woman, which is perfect, because if we rotate this, it'll be rotating right where she is. As you can see, these are all of our layers that we have. We can add a little animation. For example, we can do a little animation rotating like this, or we can just go to the camera, hit P and Shift A, and let's actually put this at the beginning. Put another set of keyframes, and we can punch in. If you hit C on the keyboard, you can toggle through all your different camera tools, where you can dolly in, rotate, or zoom. Dolly, rotate, and then we'll just dolly out. Perfect. And then select these keyframes, keyframe assistant, easy ease in. You can see for the sky, we have a little bit of black edge on the sky. So for the clouds, we can scale it bigger. Now let's go back to Photoshop, amigos. Let's go to Photoshop. So we use the pen tool to cut out the text, and what we're gonna do is select on your black arrow tool, go to your path, and let's select the path and go to edit, copy, go back to After Effects, and let's create a new solid, make comp size, hit OK, and hit Control V. What it does is it'll create a mask from the path that you copy in Photoshop. It'll create a mask here in After Effects, which is really cool. So we can call this Text Wonder. And you can leave it 2D, amigos. You can leave it as a 2D layer or a 3D layer. You can add maybe a gold color. But I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to use this to create a 3D text, to create 3D text in Element 3D. So let's hide this layer. Let's go back to our project. Let's go back to our solid. Let's bring in our solid, and let's call this E3D for Element 3D. So let's add Element 3D. And where it says custom layers, we're going to link this for path layer number 1. We're going to link it to our text wonder layer, which is the mask, this one right here. Actually, this one, let's bring it all the way to the bottom. We don't need it. We can hide it. Go back to Element 3D. Go back to your scene setup. And just very simple, you're going to hit extrude, and extrudes the text for you. And let's go to the presets. Let's go Pro Shaders. Let's grab the gold grunge, and let's give it this gold color. Perfect. And we can do geometry. Let's go to ultra. Hit OK. And it created our text in 3D. Go back to element 3D for the group 1. Let's create a null object, hit create, and we can call this text control. And from here, we can control the position and the scale and the rotation of the text. So go back to the top view, amigos, and you can see sitting right on top of Wonder Woman, and we want to push it in Z space. You can push it down. Let's push it here. Let's go back to element 3D. There's one thing that I want to show you, and let's go to particle look. Let's go to multi-object. Let's enable multi-object. Once you enable multi-object, it'll allow you to control each of the characters, each of the letters. And let's go to the Y rotation, and let's type in 90. And what we're gonna do is, let's go to 5 frames, put in a keyframe. Let's go to about 107. Let's put 0. So what it's gonna do is, let's hit U to reveal the keyframes. Let's right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease in. And we have the text moving, rotating like this. That's really cool. Now we can also, let's do this. At the beginning, when we first see this animation, we don't want to see the text. So let's animate the text as well. So following the lining up the keyframes, let's go to our text control, hit P for position. Let's put a keyframe. Let's put a keyframe here as well. And let's put keyframe assistant easy ease in. And then this one, let's just push it in Z space so we don't see it at the beginning. So let's see. Perfect. Nice. We can add her logo, the Wonder Woman logo, and let's bring it into the scene. And let's type in logo. Let's scale it down to about 25, and let's zoom in. We can move it down. And once again, let's go to our top view, amigos, and let's put it in front of Wonder Woman, and let's put it in front of our atmosphere stock footage. Go back to our active camera. Let's move it a little bit up. And let's play back. Okay. We can add a little bit of animation as well. So go back to the text control so we can line up the keyframes. And go back to the logo, hit P for position. Let's put in a couple keyframes. You can do keyframe assistant, easy ease in. And let's just move it a little bit. Let's move it a little bit in Z space. And let's see how that looks. Let's go back. Okay. So you can fade it in, you can spin it around, amigos, you can do other things, but this looks good for now. Let's add a vignette. So let's use our black solid layer and let's type in vignette. And to add the vignette, we're gonna use elliptical mask, double click on it, and let's go to inverted and hit MM to bring up the mask properties, and let's feather it about 200 pixels. We can use the blending mode of soft light and hit T for opacity, and let's bring down the opacity to about 40. So that looks pretty cool. Your element 3D, we can also add a little bit of blur. Let's go to fast blur and let's put in maybe 1. There you go. And the very last thing is, amigos, we can add optical flares. Let's call this OF. Let's go to Effect, Video Copilot, Optical Flares. Let's go to Options. I have the Pro presets. Let's use this one. Hit OK. Let's switch it to 3D layer, a 3D source. And let's go to, for the blending mode, let's choose screen mode. And let's go back to our top view. And as you can see, this is our 3D text is right here. Wonder Woman is right here. This is our sand layer, our foreground, and then this is our background. So let's move in Z space the flare all the way here to very near our background layer. Let's go back to our active camera, and let's go back all the way to the beginning, and we can move this. Let's line it up where the sun is. Let's go back to the top so you can see. So this is our background layer. You can see here clouds. This is our cloud layer, cloud footage, and optical flares right there. Go back to active camera. And what we're going to do for optical flares, amigos, is simply, let's move this down here. For the position, let's put some keyframes because this will move. Let's see. The sun moves here, so let's move it here. Okay, and then the last thing for optical flares, some of the clouds hide the sun. So whenever the clouds hide the sun, we have to hide the optical flare. And we can do that simply by keyframing the brightness. And I'm going to do it really quick, amigos, but this is something that you might want to take your time so it'll look better. Let me see this right now. So what we can do is brightness, put 0 down here. So it kind of boom goes away there. You see, we have it here at the beginning. We have it here at the beginning, and as the cloud hides the sun, the flare goes away, and it's away. You can go frame by frame. Then here we can put a keyframe, and then here we can bring it up to 100 again. So we have something like this. We have the flare going, and then let's go frame by frame. So maybe here, let's go to 3. Maybe here it goes down to about 0. It goes down to 0. So it's hidden. And then maybe go back to the position. So this is something that you need to just tweak. You can tweak, amigos. Maybe it goes back to 100. And definitely not here. So you can go back to 0. Go back to 0, go back to 0. And then here, put a keyframe. And then finally back to 100. Okay. So I kind of went fast just to show you, but take your time. Let's do a RAM preview. And that, amigos, is how you create a motion poster. Just remember, the key is to have some fun, to be creative. Look at what you have and see what elements you can use to bring some animation. You can animate the text, you can animate parts of the actor, the elements, the sky, or you can add elements. Like in this example, we added a little bit of wind, a little bit of sand. We added some optical flares as well. So just be creative, amigos. That's the key, being creative, having fun.
Amigos, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to join the School of Motion Graphics. I'll have the project files available for this tutorial, and always stay creative. Let it flow like agua from an agua.